Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. How are we all doing? Show me some love, somebody.
Happy Tuesday.
All right. There we go. Tuesday's here. Let's go. We've got the great Kate Garvey with us. I know, Kate, you got a jet a little bit early, so I was going to turn the floor over to you, see if you had anything in particular you wanted to get off of your chest and out into this great.
Where did you go? Why can't I hear you? Can you guys hear me? Oh, there you go.
Oh, I think it's me. I can hear you and see you, Kate.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Just a couple of things that have been in my world, with holidays and the summer approaching, just a reminder that if you're looking to move a closing, I guess this is true of any big holiday season like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. Always double check with everybody involved to see if they're available. So, like, 4th of July week is always notorious for having issues with closings because, attorneys are on vacation, staff is on vacation, your lender's on vacation. Getting things done in and around those times can be somewhat frustrating. So, like, before people are signing extensions, make sure that everybody is available. And that's same, around Christmas and things like that, just because, believe it or not, lenders and attorneys have lives too. So sometimes, they're taking vacations and whatnot. And just to avoid any issues, it's just always good to kind of double check with those involved and make sure that a date works for them. And that's true, I guess, too, of end of the month. The last day of the month, everybody wants to move that, but a lot of times attorneys are really busy on that day and they don't necessarily have an extra spot for a closing. So I always just think if you're going to move to, a date in and around a holiday or the end of the month, just double check with everybody and make sure that works for everybody, just to avoid any possible issues.
I'm going to
That's
just
one.
I'm going to jump in there too. I just want to make sure everybody's aware. Just all service providers. We had an issue, not an issue, but just I guess a miscommunication. An agent trying to get photos done for a listing that they want to bring to market this Thursday. And when the market's a little bit slower, and you call your photographer on a Monday, they can probably get you in there, get the photos done, get them back to you in 24 to 48, and you're good for your Thursday launch. But this time of year, with so many listings coming to market, you really got to be careful with that. So, sign providers, home inspectors, media companies, like, they don't just hire summer staff. It's just, so you got to think ahead. If you think you've got a listing coming, or you're, on these deals, just be thoughtful of the service providers and their timelines.
And just this is just something that I've been dealing with lately. I don't know if you guys have been too, but VA loans. They are great. We all love our veterans. However, I don't know if it's the current, vibe in the world or whatnot, but VA has been taking a very long time to get back on things. So, for example, I had a condo that needed to be approved by the VA, and it pushed the closing a month and a half. And this was not any fault of the lender or our buyer or the agents or me. We just had to play by their timelines. So just something to consider again when you're, making offers, especially if it's a buy sell or something like that. Um, VA has been taking a long time to get back on approvals and all of that stuff. So, just beware that could push a closing. Literally, I think the last 3 VA loans that I've handled have all the closing dates have moved on all of them. And it's because we were waiting to hear back from VA. So just something to consider when you are making offers, and just to let your clients know and be aware that, VA, for some reason, is very slow moving these days. I don't know if
Anybody else?
anybody else has experienced.
Yeah. Has anybody experienced that on a VA deal?
I just had this on a VA transaction. Appraisal took forever, like
Mhm.
4 weeks. It was done quick, ordered, came out, and then it was just waiting and waiting. And I had an appraisal done like 3 weeks later and had it back in like a couple days.
So it was the VA appraiser, Lauren, that was slow?
Yeah. Yeah, they said they needed some approval from the VA beyond just
Yeah.
the appraisal itself, that they were waiting for. He's like, my stuff's all done. He's like, I just need whatever, a sign off or something from.
Gotcha.
And that's the issue. That's what's been taking so long is you get something in and then they have, they have time frames. They have 5 days to review it and then 10 days to get back to you. And, it's a very different time frame than like what we're used to, right? Like we want things done now, like we're, let's go. But they're very, very slow. So, things like that, exactly what Lauren is talking about, are the things that are going to delay, and we're just waiting for approval. But they have their own time frame.
Anybody else have anything going on a transaction of theirs or something that you came across that you think would be a good share for the group? I had my wife share something with me that was really interesting. Um, so on June 5th, so just a few days ago, we had our 31st state. I forget what state it was. I want to say it might have been New Jersey. Put their no touch law for hands-free driving into place. Which doesn't sound like a big deal until you actually look at these hands-free driving laws. So Massachusetts has been in effect since 2020, Connecticut since 2005, and Rhode Island since 2018. And what these laws say, and I'm bringing this up because we're all in our cars so much. In Massachusetts, you cannot hold or touch your phone unless your car is completely stopped and not in a travel lane. So you're stopped at a red light and you go, okay, I'm stopped, I'm not moving, whatever. I'm just going to check my text or I'm going to scroll or whatever. Not legal to do. In theory, you could get a ticket for this. And most states are following this same guideline. I don't know if anybody's, actually gotten pulled over for this or how well this is being enforced, but that is technically the law. With the exception of, I looked at most of the New England states. I looked at Florida. Florida's always got their own way of doing things. So in Florida, the hands-free required only in school zones and construction zones. Elsewhere, texting while driving is prohibited, but holding a phone is not completely banned unless in those zones. So I don't know. Does anybody have any additional information on these laws? Was anybody aware that it was? I just thought you couldn't, be talking on your phone. I thought that was the whole point of the Bluetooth, but it's literally you can't touch your phone. So, any thoughts on that? Okay, nobody cares. Well, somebody else drive. I've got a couple other topics. You guys don't like my topics. I'll continue on something that Kate kind of just touched on. Inman, which for those of you guys who don't know, has been a leading kind of news provider in the real estate space. They put out an article regarding some new agreements between HUD and FHFA. And they're pretty significant. So I think, I don't know when we're going to start to see the impacts of this. But basically, they're trying to do some cuts. So they're trying to work closer together. So they signed a memorandum of understanding to jointly investigate housing discrimination and share data, which apparently right now they're kind of operating as two separate entities. with the areas of focus being kind of the traditional stuff. Is redlining going on, appraisal bias, lending discrimination, etc. Cross-training the staffs. But here's some of the interesting stuff as we trying to look at the U.S. budget, and they're looking for places to cut. The HUD budget proposal for 2026 is a $32.9 billion cut to HUD funding, $32.9 billion. 81% of the cuts target rental assistance, housing vouchers, and homelessness prevention. It says FHA loan access restrictions, could be affected. You could have as much as 40% of FHA staff being laid off. So when we're talking about loan processing times, et cetera. And then I think you guys have probably heard this, the non-permanent residents are now barred from FHA loans. That went into effect May 25th. So that is a now thing. So that's like a visa holder, right? So you have to be a permanent resident to take advantage of the FHA loan. I'm trying to think. The Home Investment Partnership Program, so literally called HOME, 1.25 billion is proposed for elimination. That was affordable housing projects. Another thing that it's looking to affect is these opportunity zones. So if you guys aren't aware, there is funding out there and tax incentives for investing into these opportunity zones. So apparently they had identified about 8,700 of these zones throughout the U.S. Under invested areas, basically. Trying to get the investors to come in. We'll give you tax breaks if you invest, fix up these properties, et cetera. And those 8,700 opportunity zones will sunset in 2026. And it's a rural focus version will launch in 2027. So they're going to do something similar, but looking for the developers to go and develop in rural areas, build more housing, basically. So that will be interesting. Let's see what else here. It says that Fannie and Freddie are looking to go public. So this has been a government conservatorship since 2008. So potential to go public with those companies. I think those are some of the major things. So I guess just be paying attention, on these government loans, timelines, accessibility, dotting your I's, crossing your T's ahead of time, and not expecting stuff to just go quickly. 45-day closings, not 30-day closings. Getting everything done up front as fast as you can. Anybody have anything to add? Read anything to the contrary? Experience anything along these lines? Okay. I'll share another story that came across my desk yesterday. And this is an interesting one that I don't know how much we've talked about. We had a listing agent who gets a call from a seller and saying, hey, I don't know what just happened at that last showing, but I got water pouring out of my kitchen sink. First floor kitchen, water pouring out, going down into the basement. You got sheetrock damage. You got puddles of water on the floor. Pretty big mess. I believe only one showing during the period where they weren't sure, who was in the house. I don't think it was not like back-to-back showings. So call the buyer's agent. Buyer's agent advises that they couldn't get the kitchen sink to work. So they went under the sink and fiddled with it. And I'm not sure exactly what they did, but it turns out the kitchen sink wasn't working because it was one of those motion detector sinks. kind of like you'd see in a commercial setting where you just put your hand under, so you don't really need to turn anything or do anything. Um, so just something to be aware of. We should not be playing, home inspector or Mr. Fix It or anything like that. You just never know why somebody might have a toilet off, a sink off. Don't touch, you know, any of this stuff really. You are there to look at the property, not to touch anything. So, I don't know if anybody wants to kind of comment, maybe some other things that they've heard or seen. That would just be a good reminder for agents to, hey, don't do that, or be careful if you're going to go down that path. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, it hasn't happened to me, but I can certainly see some of my buyers bring their, stepfather there who's a contractor, and they see something and they start fiddling with stuff. And it's like, it's a fine line between, trying not to cause a scene or rub them the wrong way. But it's like, this is, this is not ours to touch right now. We're just looking at it. So, I, you know, I could see a guy, I had a guy that was like kind of touching everything and blah, blah, blah. And nothing happened, luckily, but it was also like, hey, like if we break it, we bought it. So kind of a joke thing. But yeah, I can see this happening, especially with those parents that tag along, and, the handyman guy that wants to rattle everything. Next thing you know, doorknobs are off on the ground and we don't have the tools to put it back on. And
Yeah. Yeah, just outside of opening a door, or opening a cabinet or something. I can't think of too many other things that really you should be touching. If you want to question something, just pick up the phone, call the listing agent. Hey, weird. We're here in the kitchen. I don't even know. Like, I can't remember ever turning the kitchen sink on, so I don't know why you would even be turning the kitchen sink on to know that the kitchen sink wasn't working. Um, you know, I don't know. Stacy.
So I had this happen recently, and yes, they do always want to turn on the sinks and on and off with the lights and touching the thermostat. But a recent open house, my seller, there was a family that was walking through, and they were with their father, who was a retired contractor, and he was helping the son get into the attic. And I walked away because I had to let other people in and help other people sign in. And by the time I went back upstairs, they were fully all in the attic, like a huge mess on the ground, insulation everywhere. And it was a pull down attic. So like a rickety old ladder. I mean, it's a really nice house, but like rickety. And I'm like, oh my God. And I didn't know what to say. And the agent was like, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Like they do this at every house. They always want to get in the attic. And it's like, what do you say? Like, yes, they can look in the attic, but don't go in the attic. Like you could fall through the attic. Like, so it's very interesting to, I don't know. I don't know what's the angle on that. And I had someone break a thermostat once, but thank God this is another seller. She was very nice and, didn't mind. And they're like, she's like, well, they're buying it anyways. So yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
I think
So
attics are something that you should be having a conversation with the seller about, safety and stuff like that. If there's any concern, have you been up there? And if you feel like it's safe, obviously some of these attics are walk-up attics. Some of them, like Stacy's saying, are these crickety, pull down situations. So, I mean, as long as you feel like it's safe, I don't think I have an issue with people going up in the attic. During a showing, I don't know about that. An open house, if you wanted to have the attic open and you set the stage, right? So you pull down those stairs, you have it available if people would like to go up there. At a showing, I don't know that that's appropriate without, pulling down the attic stairs without having a conversation with the listing agent. So, if you know you've got a client that likes to do that, that would be a phone call ahead of the showing. Hey, just curious, will we have access to the attic during the showing? How do we get it? Is it a pull down set of stairs? Are you okay with us pulling those stairs? That way there, if there is some insulation that comes down or whatever, hey, they knew what they allowed us to do. It's when nothing gets disclosed. You pull those stairs down, you got a mess, you put the stairs back. The seller comes back to their home after the showing and calls their agent and goes, "What the hell's going on? I got insulation all over my, second floor hallway." Right. And you'll hear this even sometimes after in home inspections too. So, and it's setting the expectations. It's having a conversation with your seller, explaining, hey, at a home inspection, this is going to happen, right? I don't typically think the home inspector is going to have like a broom or anything to clean it up. I don't think they're purposely making a mess. So sometimes it just happens.
Yeah, that is true. And yesterday at a home inspection in Boston, I was with the buyer and the inspector was cutting around the electrical box. Of course, they do that all the time. They always have a razor on them because it always gets painted shut by the last person that painted it. So I just said, and she's like, "Oh my God, why is he cutting the wall?" And I was like, "Oh, they all do, well, I wasn't like that. I was like, oh, this, it's a common occurrence because these panels get painted into the wall and they have to like remove it. And all the paint, I always clean up, by the way. I mean, like I have everything in my car, so I'm always like cleaning up the floor. But it was again like white paint all over like a dark carpet, and it was like a mess. And it's just funny because some inspectors clean it up themselves, I've seen, and then some inspectors like walk all over the paint they just created on the carpet. So yeah, it is just being aware and communicating. And I mean, I always clean up everything, but this buyer was like, "What the heck? Like, I'm paying this guy $500 to check out this condo," and he's like, cutting through the wall. And like that guy didn't even explain it, which no like shade on him, but yeah, I think like we all have to be aware that like they don't really know what's going on, and the ball is always in our court for us to explain to them what's happening.
Yep. Tyler, I know you had your mic on. What did you have to add?
Honestly forgot at this point. I'm listening now.
All right.
I think it was just regarding people touching things they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I had an agent tell me that they went through a final walkthrough early on in their career, and the buyers couldn't be there, so then they were testing the water and it wasn't on, so then they went to go check the main water valve and it was off, and then when they turned it on, a pipe burst. So yeah, don't. It resulted in a big lawsuit. Apparently, that was all.
Yeah. I mean, turning stuff on and off, even when you've got a winterized property, right? So all the water's been removed, the pipes have been blown out, or a special liquid has been applied to the plumbing so that it doesn't freeze. You'd think, okay, I'll just turn the water back on when I need to de-winterize and get all the plumbing working again. Like, you don't want to be the person that does that. Anything could have happened, and if you're not in a position to fix if something does go wrong at the time, now you're responsible. Right. So if somebody's like, "Oh yeah, just go ahead, turn all the water back onto the house," I wouldn't want that to be on me. Right. If I've got something in writing that says I'm not liable and go ahead and do it, and then maybe I'm going down that path. But you got to understand, like, you turn that main water line back on and let all that water come in, and you got a leak somewhere, and somehow, sometimes these valves, they just fail. So you go to shut that main water line off and it's not shutting anything off. So now you got to go try and find a spot somewhere else in the house where you could shut it down. You don't want to mess with water. So just be careful with your touching it. Adam just put a good comment in the chat. Would love to hear what you guys keep in your cars. What is the Realtor toolkit? So far we've heard, maybe just a little broom and dustpan. From Stacy, I know a lot of agents will carry water. I know I've heard like crayons or little things for kids to keep the kids active at a showing. A shovel, obviously, in the wintertime in case you need to shovel some snow out. I know for the females, you guys are carrying, mace or whatever is allowed in your state for protection. What else are people carrying in their cars? Another one that I can remember is the house numbers, right? So to get your smoke certificate, you need to have numbers on the house that are, I think, at least 3 inches high. Some towns could be different. So I used to just have a kit that I think I just got from Home Depot or Amazon, or it's just all the numbers, a packet of them. Stacy.
So I have yeah, I have a whole like box that I carry stuff in. So it's always paper towels, water, cups. I have stuff for kids for open houses and measure tape, which I had to go like run down Commonwealth Avenue in Boston to my car to get a measure tape because the buyer wanted to measure for her son for a air conditioning window unit. And the inspector wasn't there yet. And then he got there and she borrowed his measure tape too, just to make sure. A lot of stuff though, signs, tape, paper towels, Kleenex, or yeah, Clorox wipes, a lot. And I use all of it.
Awesome. Awesome. What else? What else are you guys keeping in your cars?
Booties,
Yeah.
towels,
Oh, that's
hats.
good. Nobody else?
Paperwork.
Ah, there's a good one, right? Just having, buyer's agreements available, agency disclosures available, offers available.
Well, I have a full printer in my car and everything, so I can actually print for them. So that's kind of cool since I'm a notary as well.
That's a first. That's a
Yeah.
is it plugs into your like cigarette lighter, Paul? How do you,
No, I actually have a special inverter in the car, so I can run just about anything, and had to have a special inverter to run the printer. So I'm loaded for bear in the office department.
pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I want one.
Glad to help you.
You might have to give us some details or instructions on how to do that, Paul. Do you got to have a certain level of juice coming out of your vehicle, or could you do this with your everyday sedan?
Yeah, well, just about any car you can do that with. You have to run a cable from the battery back to the inverter, which is kind of the interesting part of it. But you can actually run just about anything off of it. Sometimes you have to start the car if it's not providing enough current, but most cars will provide a short time with an inverter, a heavy duty inverter, without having to start the car. So it's a pretty cool feature.
How about for those of us with electric vehicles? Would this be possible?
Wow, not ever thought of that concept. Seems like you'd have plenty of juice with an electric vehicle.
Yeah, I don't know what I've got. I've got a Tesla. Amber's chiming in. I know she's got the Mach-E. I don't know. I don't know if I've got like an actual plug. I may have something in the trunk area.
I know
Yeah.
the Mach-E has something in the trunk that you can plug into.
A regular plug.
Yeah, thing is that you have to it's all about the current too. So even though you may have 110 volt coming out of a little inverter in a car, it has to be rated for a certain power for to run a printer. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I'm going to test that this week.
So bring be sure to get your onboard fire extinguisher ready if you're
All right, Jeff has got a whole get up here. Jeff says, yes, Teslas do have power outlets. Most models have a 12-volt low voltage power outlet in the center console. This outlet is designed for low power accessories like phone chargers, etc. Some models, like the Cybertruck, also have the AC in the cargo bed for higher power applications. So I may be out of luck on a printer.
Yeah, that was just a quick Google search.
Yeah. Who else is keeping something unique in their car that's come in handy? Let's get a couple of more things on the board and we'll wrap it. Nothing else? All right. Hopefully we gave you guys a couple of ideas of some extra stuff you should be storing. Good stuff today. Appreciate you guys all sharing everything, and have yourselves a wonderful Tuesday. We will come back and do it again tomorrow morning. All right. Take care.
Have a good one.